I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. Matthew, my husband, had always been a man of quiet composure, rarely one to let emotions rule him. Lately, though, something had changed. His silence felt heavier, his gaze sharper, as if he were searching for an answer he already knew. It all came to a head one ordinary evening, an evening that began like any other, but ended in devastation. Dinner was unusually quiet. Matthew sat across from me, his movements stiff and deliberate. Our son, Ethan, chattered excitedly about his day at school, his innocent laughter momentarily breaking the tension. For a brief moment, everything felt normal. Then Matthew spoke. "Evelyn," his voice was calm, but something unfamiliar lurked beneath it. Something foreboding. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. The way he said it, the way his eyes locked onto mine, told me this wasn't just a simple conversation. Something was coming, and I wasn't ready for it. "Sure," I replied, trying to sound casual, but my voice wavered, betraying my unease. Matthew leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. His gaze flickered to Ethan, soft for just a moment, before hardening again. "I've been thinking," he said carefully, "about us, about our family." I forced a smile. "Is something wrong?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the drawer beside him, pulled out a manila envelope, and placed it on the table between us. His movements were slow, deliberate, stretching the unbearable moment. "What's this?" I whispered, my heart hammering. "Open it." With trembling hands, I picked up the envelope, feeling the weight of his stare. Slowly, I pulled out the papers inside. My breath caught when I saw the words at the top. Paternity test results. Time seemed to stop. The letters blurred as tears welled in my eyes. I couldn't read them, but I didn't need to. The truth was written all over Matthew's face. "Ethan isn't my son, is he?" His voice was steady, but it carried a coldness I had never heard before. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. "Answer me, Evelyn." His voice sharpened, his patience wearing thin. I deserved the truth. Tears streamed down my face as I struggled to find my voice. "Matthew, it's not what you think." He let out a bitter laugh, cutting me off. "Not what I think." His eyes darkened with pain. "Then explain it to me, Evelyn. Explain this." He gestured toward the papers in my shaking hands. I looked down at them again, at the undeniable proof that shattered the fragile world I had fought so hard to protect. "It was a mistake," I whispered, barely able to breathe. "A mistake?" Matthew repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. "You let me believe Ethan was mine for 6 years. You let me love him, raise him, give him everything I had. And now you're calling it a mistake." The pain in his voice was unbearable. Every word cut deeper than the last. "I didn't mean for this to happen," I pleaded. "I thought it wouldn't matter." I kept telling myself it wouldn't. "But it does, Evelyn," he said, his voice rising, his composure beginning to crack. "It matters, more than you can imagine." Ethan looked up from his plate, sensing the tension. "Mommy? Daddy? What's wrong?" Matthew's expression softened as he turned to our son. "Nothing, buddy," he said gently. "Go to your room for a bit, okay? Mommy and I need to talk." Ethan hesitated, his wide eyes darting between us. After a moment, he nodded and slipped away. As soon as he was gone, Matthew turned back to me, his face hardening. "I've had my suspicions for a while," he admitted, his voice low but charged with emotion. "The late nights, the secret calls, the trips that never made sense. But I wanted to believe in you. I wanted to trust you. So I pushed those doubts away." "Matthew, please," I pleaded. "Let me explain." No, his tone was firm, final. "You had 6 years to explain, Evelyn. 6 years to tell me the truth. But instead, you lied to me. Every single day." He reached for another document on the table, a bank statement. And then there's this. His voice was cold, detached. Our joint accounts? I've frozen them. You can't do that. I gasped, panic setting in. Oh, I can, he replied, his voice like ice. And I did. You won't spend another penny of my money. The full scale of what was happening hit me like a crashing wave. My carefully built world was crumbling, piece by piece. And as for the man you were seeing, Jake, isn't it? Matthew continued, a bitter smirk forming on his lips. He's finished. I made sure of it. My breath caught in my throat. What do you mean? I sent everything to his employer. He shrugged, as if it were nothing. The affair, the paternity results, every detail. He won't be working any time soon. Matthew, please, I begged, desperation creeping into my voice. Don't do this. He shook his head, his eyes filled with a storm of hurt and anger. You did this, Evelyn, not me. You made your choices. Now you face the consequences. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a harsh screech. I'll be filing for divorce first thing tomorrow, he said, his voice softening only slightly as he mentioned Ethan. I'll always love him. He's innocent in all of this. But you? You're on your own. I sat frozen, stunned into silence as he walked away. The slam of the front door echoed through the house, and with it, the weight of everything came crashing down on me. Moments later, Ethan's small footsteps broke the suffocating stillness. Mommy? His voice was filled with concern. Is everything okay? I wiped away my tears and forced a smile. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Don't worry. But as I held him close, the truth hit me like a tidal wave. I had betrayed the man who loved me. I had shattered the trust that held our family together. And worst of all, I had hurt the innocent child who depended on me. The life I had taken for granted was gone, replaced by a void I could never fill.